In closing government, representing Australia, we have Liam Thorne and Liliana Tai. And in closing opposition, representing Lesotho, we have Dimfo Moeti and Abigail Branford. Judging them today will be Tsiamo Malati from the University of Free State, Franny Solnick from the University of Beihang, Freddie Marshall from the University of Warwick, David Wu from the University of New South Wales, and in the chair, la actual campeón del torneo del Maestros, Isolda Maria Vela from Escuela Libre del Derecho en la Ciudad de Mexico. Woo! The motion for the 2019 World Universities Masters Championship reads, this House believes university debating does more harm than good. Good luck. Good luck to all teams, some more so than others.
5 minutes.
I have never been prouder to propose a motion in all my life to deal with one of the world's most serious threats, the threat of university debating. We believe not only that it has done much more harm than good, but we would actively support measures to suppress debating and crush it in all its forms by any means necessary. What are we talking about in our case? I'm going to talk about how it takes vulnerable nerds and it damages their lives irreparably in a way that we absolutely cannot condone. Second of all, I'm going to be talking about it reducing important social issues like whether zoos ought to be permitted to a mere 7-minute questions. In the second speech, we're going to talk about the existential threat that Yaka poses to humanity. And for these reasons, we certainly think that university debating does more harm than good. So, what does it do? It takes these vulnerable people, no thank you, we use schools debating to lure them in, to trap them. And then, what do we do to them? We indoctrinate them into using a bunch of meaningless jargon. Who among us have not had conversations with our friends that begun with panel? At the point at which we go to the pub tonight, we will certainly create greater utility. Who among us in relationships have not gone on a date, I'll take you in a second, and begun the date by saying, Madam Speaker, 3 reasons why this relationship is in your best interests?
Hold on, David.
Yeah, go ahead, opening.
That is a case against Oxford in specific.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Additionally, what we would say is that what they might tell us is that there's still scope for you to have relationships. You can still find meaning, you know, at debating tournaments. That's where you're going to get to have these sorts of meaningful social interactions. The problem is all of those people are debaters, rendering it utterly worthless. Finally, what we would say is that in the long run, this relationship with debating infects your mind to such an extent that you probably end up doing things like becoming a management consultant. And then, like our sponsors, working with advising parastatals in the developing world on how to corruptly attract government tenders. Something we think particularly dangerous for everyone. And I advise you to all quit debating. I know many of us have tried. Many of us, you know, go to every tournament saying, after this tournament, I'll probably leave. But the addictive nature of debating is something that, in our opinion, makes it analogous to crack cocaine, analogous to crystal meth, something that we should not be exposing vulnerable people to. Second argument, why we think...
Point?
I'll take closing, actually, if they've got a point.
I do have
I do have a point. I feel like it's unfair of you to blame debating, a institution that has gotten many nerdy geek men laid, on your own failings and relationships.
Yeah, but I think you need to think about the counterfactual, where perhaps I would have been able to have more meaningful relationships with real human beings and not debaters
How
who
dare
are
you, I'm
just
not a
going to tell
robot.
me, you know, we're going to start the conversation with whether we think team codes are a good thing or not. We're going to talk about, you know, whether Marxist extensions are viable. Utter waste of your time. Maybe you have some relationships, but you could probably have better ones elsewhere. Maybe you'll have fewer of them, let's be fair, but those fewer relationships are probably a hell of a lot better. Secondly, what we would say is that you reduce important issues to the kinds of arguments you can make in debating. For example, you can rationalize your beliefs. You can say, well, maybe Trump should build a wall, because what about the discourse
Trump
that
should
building
definitely
that
build
wall
a mall,
is likely
sir.
to create? No, thank you. You can say things like, with absolute certainty, that things ought and ought not be done. You know, you can say, we certainly shouldn't allow immigrants into our country. Think of all the backlash that would occur. Think about the optics that it might lead to. In conclusion, what we'd say about debating is that it's something that takes vulnerable people and it manipulates them into believing that they can have the sort of glory of Shangwu. But realistically, it leaves them as just robots spouting a bunch of meaningless jargon and engaging in social interactions where they limit themselves to making 7-minute, probably shitty arguments. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. We would like to call the Leader of Opposition to open the debate for that.
Hi, everyone. I know everyone is kind of waiting to see what happens with Masters, but the CA team has asked me to first give you another retroactive Yaka briefing for Yaka Night. Please do not jump into Yaka buckets and try to drink your way out. Please do not jump into another bucket before waiting half an hour before you finish the first bucket. Please do not throw up on your friends and medical staff as they drag your ass into the hospital. Please do not ask the medical staff to give you more Yaka instead of medical treatment. And finally, and this is most important, please don't tell your partner that you prefer Yaka over them after you didn't make the open break.
Point. Who was that?
Sorry?
Who was that?
That was Yoni. I also ask both governments to, from now on, respect the policy of team codes in this tournament and refer to us either as Nevon and Cohen eggplant emoji, or alternatively, being the only ESL team in this final, as the Zagreb of Masters. Now, I have a bit of a problem because I've prepared my speech before coming to Cape Town. And a lot of my expectations didn't end up fulfilling themselves. For example, I had a lot of jokes on the tournament running late. I had a lot of jokes on the CAs accidentally leaking motions. And I definitely had a lot of jokes about Dan getting drunk and hitting on himself in the mirror. But sadly, none of my expectations came true. So let's do some rebuttal to opening government. Look, opening government tell you that there's this kind of poor, vulnerable geek. And after coming to debating, suddenly they don't know how to, interact in conversation, and they act weirdly. David, I think we all know you weren't any better before you joined debating. But more importantly, what we're going to show you is that... Go for it.
What if I had done something much more useful, like started playing sport, got ripped, and then found friends that way?
We all know you can also not play sports. But actually, my speech is actually going to be about what are the alternative activities that we're going to have. Because some of you might think that, at the best case scenario, all of you would be wasting your time in other ways. Maybe, I don't know, going on InstaSnap or listening to Mariah Carey or whatever you young people do these days. But I think the truth is much more nefarious. I think that we have a group of people here who for some reason love to win and love to argue, but don't seem to care which side they're on, and don't seem to care what is the content of what they're saying. What would they do with those evil powers that they have? Well, let's take one example. We know that Dan Berman wants to work for the Trump administration. We think it is preferable for him not to be doing that. I had a There we go. As you can see, this is time spent debating, and this is time actively helping the Trump administration, right? None of you are doing that right now. We think that is a win. Moving on. We think, like I mentioned before, no thank you, like I mentioned before, I don't think you guys could have done sports, let's be honest. What could you have done? Well,
Excuse me?
You may think that debating is weird, I'll take you in a moment, is weird, is geeky, is bizarre, ruins your social life, but what are the real alternatives? Had you gone, for example, to Model UN, I mean, come on.
Sir.
Point, sir.
Sir, how do you think Australia can become better at cricket?
Sorry?
Australia can become better at cricket.
Okay, so I've actually prepared for this moment. So here's the clash in this debate, and here are CO's POIs. And in the middle, we have Table Mountain. Thank you. Moving on. If you did not go to MUN, what else could you have been doing? So we do concede that some of you may have been doing something useful. For example, I don't know if you know, but Fenella, the CA of this, our beloved CA of this tournament, is trying to provide information to poor agricultural farmers to try and make sure they have larger yields. We think that's incredible. We think that's incredibly important. And we think he is likely, if he spends more time on it, to save millions and millions of lives. But some of those lives will end up being debaters. From the logic of the government side, that is a bad thing. This is Fenella, not debating, but then saving millions of lives. Finally, it wasn't easy to get here. It was a particularly hard break. I don't know if you know this, but sadly, the CA team of the Masters tournament decided not to have a semifinal for this important Masters competition for the odd and unjustified reason of there not being 8 teams competing. I just want to say as a final thing, it has been exactly 10 years since Yoni and I debated for the first time in Worlds, and we are honored to be here. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for that speech. We would like to call the Deputy Prime Minister to continue this debate.
Can everyone hear me clearly? I encourage the panel to ignore all arguments in this debate, because obviously the most important thing is that an African team at least wins Worlds. And we would tell you that it should be this African team. We have been structurally excluded from several breaking panels. We have structurally been excluded from several parts of the break. And so if you must consider one thing at all, it is that we should win this championship of the World's Masters Final. Importantly, one piece of characterization. We are quite happy to be against all forms of university debating, including pseudo-debating such as Model UN. We don't really give a damn about it. It is useless and unvaluable. Importantly, we're given several graphs as substitutions for real arguments. I thought that you were a better debater than that. I heard about your rep. Importantly, let's do some quick defenses of what we already heard from David Harris.
Before you do that, Paida.
No, thank you. Sit down, bow down. So, first thing, is that we're talking about people who are incredibly vulnerable. People who are nerds, people who have been socially excluded. What we're told here is that the alternative is that Daniel Berman, don't know her, never heard her name before, would be working for the Trump administration. That is one irrelevant Michelle that would be doing so. Honestly, we don't care that much. Thank you, next. Next thing that's really important is that if I were not a debater, look at how gorgeous I am, I could be an Instagram blogger. I would have millions of followers. I would be able to access and reach people all around the world.
That
so
bubble
much
butt.
more important. Dimple, try save yourself.
Paida, I feel like it is not our fault that you have made poor life decisions, and we think that there are inherently more benefits, particularly for the rest of us who are socially awkward, who need to get some and can only get them at tournaments.
Don't try to project on me. We know you've made poor life decisions, not the rest of us. Moving on.
On White Daddy, sir.
Guys, that is never a poor life decision, ever. I got laid, I had fun, and you know what? I'd still be able to do it outside of debating. I don't need it for that. Moving right on. So, next thing, the existential threat that the drinking does. Remember Yuck-apocalypse in Berlin. Remember Yuck-apocalypse that happened in Botswana. What we would tell you is that when you make the yucca, importantly, debaters are incapable of controlling the amounts that they drink, especially when people find out that they haven't broken.
I'm seizing the means of the yucca,
you had to experience today on New Year's. Importantly, that means you do several things. You make stupid life decisions. You run into walls. You have to get alcohol pumped out of your stomach. What does that mean? It means you fundamentally are likely to exterminate yourselves by virtue of your own failed drinking. We would tell you in these regards, in order to survive and not be and in order to survive, in order to live, we would we would prefer a world where we don't have debating.
Points of information,
where it
comrade.
encourages this stupid drinking culture.
Opening
very quickly.
Note that none of Paida's argument addressed the real causes of the 2008 financial crisis, which are obviously the oppressive norms of romantic love and childmaking.
Okay, keep quiet. Guys, I don't know why we're clapping for something that's clearly not funny and irrelevant to the debate. We move on.
Haters gonna hate, Paida.
Keep quiet. Now, importantly, it means you make bad life decisions. You lose all forms of dignity, be it you passed out on the field, be it you grinding up on the dance floor, be it you engaging in coitus in a freaking toilet. You have no shame. That's nasty. Check yourselves. So importantly, it means that debating is ultimately a harm to your psyche, to your sense of self-esteem. Importantly, we end up then focusing on things which are largely irrelevant, like Marxist extensions. Honestly, sort your lives out. Or having excess doom threads, trying to engage with people to the end. And the problem with debating is you must pick a side, you never reach consensus, and then you spend hours on debate shitposting. Honestly, you need to get a life. Check yourselves. And so that means that you never achieve glory such as being ripped. Contrary to what you believe, Dave was ripped when he was 16 or 17. He wasn't the blob that we found today. So importantly, we would prefer a world where we don't have debating. We think it's ultimately more harmful than good. And if anything, Africa wins the Masters Cup. Thank you. Woo. Shit.
Thank you for that speech. We would like to call the Deputy Leader of Opposition to continue this debate.
Thank you, Speaker. So proud to be representing Team Yellow Squirrel in this debate. We think the most significant piece of analysis that comes from Deputy Prime Minister is that an African team should win the Worlds. If the last thing I'm going to say in my speech is going to directly clash and beat that piece of analysis. Please keep that in mind. Other forms of rebuttal. So he says he could have been a supermodel on Instagram. No rebuttal. We think that by dissing Yaka, OG has already lost this round. And lastly, we think they talk about bad decisions and nerds going out to the world. We think they missed the crux of this debate, which is the distinction between high school debating and university debating. And I'll be addressing that in my speech. I'll do three substantives, two substantives, one about high school debating versus uni debating, and two about love. Before that, let us acknowledge that 5-minute speeches is too short a time for either analysis or rebuttal. Therefore, we think the metric of this debate should be, what's most lucrative to you people? Sela and myself will pay $40 US to anyone who votes for us in this round. I have literally, no thank you. I have literally searched, not yet, I have literally searched the judge's briefing for the word bribe. It is not against the rules. Who will pay for that money? A, we think the government of Mexico. B, if that doesn't, I'm reliably informed that if you say that, people vote for you. B, we think the team from Sydney is a good option. And if not, that after some pointless shutdown of WUDC, Sela will pay for it, for sure. So let's talk about the distinction between uni and high school. They say debating makes you, in a second, debating makes you make bad life decisions. We think debating in high school, in your formative years, makes you make bad life decisions. When you're a university debater, you had already made a lot of bad decisions that place you on track to a bad life. Then the question becomes, what's the comparative? You're already an intolerable little arrogant wanker. We say that, in a sec, that without the outlet that is university debating, you would unleash the full extent of your wankery upon the world. We think that is comparatively a worse thing. Opening.
Look, we're also happy to ban the gateway drug of schools debating, but we think that the dealers in universities debating are part of that problem.
Yeah, we say the fact. Did I mention that I climbed Table Mountain on foot? Because I did.
Point, sir.
Secondly, they portray us, closing?
You speak of debating being an outlet to release the wankeriness of debaters. Yeah. Is that why you've spent 20 years debating?
I just refer to you guys as little arrogant wankers. I'm a huge arrogant wanker. So they characterize us as vulnerable nerds. We say university debating is the absolute only chance of us vulnerable nerds to find love. Duncan met Abby. Tekwe met Enting. For Christ's sake, even Sela met someone. We say that without the opportunity of university debating, we would all end up just raising our pets alone. Let it be recognized. No, thank you. Let it be recognized that pets are inherently innocent creatures. They deserve the atrocity of our companionship even less than humans do. We say those are the comparatives of this debate. Unleashing your intolerableness onto the world or unleashing it onto your pets, we think both are worse than having the outlet of WUDC. I'd like to conclude by quoting our Uber driver from 2 days ago. And that directly clashes with our African team winning point. I quote, "Why are there still Jews in the world? They know Jesus has come, and they can clearly see God is angry with them." Dear panel, as 5 wise persons, and as the clear disciples of God on this green earth, when you pass judgment on us today, please show us that we have even a slight chance of salvation.
Thank you for that speech. We call the member of government to opening, closing house.
Thanks, Kevin. I wanted to have a drink tonight, but then I heard South Africa was in a drought. And on Yaka night, I could really tell from all the thirsty people walking around. I want to first start, before I begin with our extension, I'm going to first give some rebuttal to opening opposition's case, because this is a thing, is whilst they're two incredibly funny people, when you listen closely, there's really no substantive, there's just a lot of dick swinging and jokes. But what we need to first deal with is their main claim that, you know, having love is really good because all these people have been able to meet each other through debating. When you think about it, it's really a whole bunch of really great women who've settled for much less men. For example, the only uncontroversial example I can give is Amira, who's dated some misc white men in the past, and she should really not date anyone other than the twin version of herself.
Queer female debaters, ma'am.
No thanks. But in substantive today, what we're going to bring you from closing government is actually the only substantive extension in this case. We're going to bring you the 3 E's of extensions. Number 1, the impact on the economy. Number 2, the impact on the environment. And number 3, I ran out of like E words, and then Liam said something that I didn't know what the word meant, so I settled for ears, but it's going to be a good extension.
Point.
The first one, on the economy, and this directly corresponds to Sellers' POI on the GFC, because we think we could have solved the GSC had we not all decided to opt into debating. Because, for example, case study 1, let's take Yoni, right? Let's say Yoni probably paid around $3,000 to come to Worlds this tournament. He's probably paid $1,000 per year for therapy for all the times he's lost a debate. And then let's multiply that by the 20 years he's done debating. That's taking us at roughly 80,000. I had to use a calculator, don't worry. And then if we multiply that by the 1,000 people in this room tonight, that gives you 80 million US dollars, which could have probably bailed out like Tasmania from the GFC. That's really good. And for all you old people, you might not know, but because of the housing bubble, that means you can also buy 10 houses with $80 million. The second thing, do you have a POI?
Yeah. So you talk about the bad decisions of women, but I want to ask, if your daughter was the institution of university debating, would you shut it down?
I don't really understand, but I'm not sure if it's because I'm deaf. And this actually brings me to my third extension, the ears, because this is really relevant in this debate in particular, because debating makes you listen to so much shit that you literally have so much earwax in your ears that if you've ever been to the doctor and they've cleaned your ears, there's probably a lot of earwax.
Sorry, what are you saying?
Second thing is, there's so many white, angry men yelling all the time that it really makes you quite deaf. And so after listening to all these angry men yell over 10 years, I literally couldn't hear half the jokes in your speech. I'm so sorry. The second thing, though, that's really important in this debate is the environment. And this is the really key crux, because if we can fix global warming, you must give the debate to CG. When people are nervous, they tend to fart. And because in debating, a lot of people tend to be nervous, it means there's a lot of farting, which contributes to global warming. If instead we all did Model UN, we would fucking crush it and none of us would be fucking nervous, so there would be no global warming.
Missed your extension, but I caught your shaft, Lily.
All right, I'll take closing.
Ma'am, have you realized that you're directly screwing over your opening government, who aren't even that cute, because you're in fact supporting other forms of debating and just not BP debating?
Oh, no, we sharpened the knife before we came tonight. We're happy to knife. We're happy to knife. And the last thing I'm going to say on this is it's great that people are procreating, but like sex takes a lot of energy that could otherwise be spent into other things, like
for shame, ma'am.
Watching Netflix. I don't know, that's pretty fun. And that's really good, because if we had more energy and instead stopped using cars, that would also help fucking solve global warming. If all of you, instead of taking a fucking Uber here, spent one less hour having sex and instead walked here, we would probably fix global warming as well. Look, at the end of this speech, we were only in this final because there's always affirmative action for the University of Sydney, which is probably why we have not one, but two finals tonight. And that's okay because we usually also get AA to win, so I hope the judges take note here. And at the end of this speech, if anyone has another POI, because I feel like that's, oh no, actually, sorry, I had a really good joke I forgot to say. So I wanted to just tell OO here that even though Sellers' graph were really amazing, I can clearly tell they started debating 10 years ago because this is what graphs look like for the youth. Could we have a zoom? So this is us, the big cow, and this is the rest of the teams. So, all right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We would like to call the member of opposition.
Hey guys, so today what I'm going to do is the impossible. I'm going to have 7 pieces of extension in a 5-minute speech. I'm going to rebut everything we've gotten from government side, and then before the debate is over, I'm also going to knife my opening because I feel like I can't in reason stand with the kind of arguments they had and the jokes they had, right? What we want everyone to know here on the side of the debate is that as closing opposition, not only are we deeply sex positive, we're also inherently communist. We think that like we 100% support debating because we are here to seize the means of BP debating and most importantly, to seize the means of Yaka. We think that BP debating inherently and debating in general has hugely benefited those of us who are weird and awkward and deeply nerdy and who could never find love in the outside world. We think that it is a good thing that we have a place where we can be, no thank you, where we can be with our own kind and live our best lives. So I'm just quickly going to run into like some of the benefits of debating, right? So the first thing that we need to understand about debating and why it's good is firstly it teaches you to like think for yourself and question your own beliefs. We think that's inherently good. We think that at the point where you like Miley Cyrus and Nickelback, you really do need to be questioning yourself, and this is a great place to allow that to happen so that these kinds of bands do no longer have to be like put into our ears and like forced upon the rest of us who have good taste, right? We think that it's also really important that you get to go and meet you have the opportunity to travel and meet people from different parts of the world. We think that my ability to meet like mediocre white men from Oxford, mediocre white men from Sydney, mediocre white men from like Germany, and mediocre white men from UCT has deeply made me a better person, understanding that like it's not just within South Africa, but it's all over the world, that the white men are generally mediocre, right? I think that this is an important thing to know if we want to create a more communist extension, right? I think that like importantly, what's weird for us to hear on, okay, quickly, Paida.
You're in a relationship with someone who's not a debater. How has debating helped you find love?
How has debating stopped me from finding love, right? I think that this like weird analogy on their side that you cannot find love outside of debating if you are debating is largely a lie and just shows us that they're just generally useless people who like can't possibly find love anyway. And I feel like even for those kinds of people, we should allow them to find love within debating and have some fun and like fool around. I don't think that that's something that should be prevented just because we're weird and we're awkward and we're nerdy, right? Which happens under their side of the house. I think that was also important to understand is that like within debating, I think we learn very valuable lessons, such as how to make yaka. We on our side of the house believes that yaka is one of the greatest things that have been created for humankind, and any kind of decision making or any kind of policy that prevents us from being able to have amazing yaka nights, including having sex in bathrooms, because goddamn babes, live your best life. Don't let anybody tell you where you can and can't have sex, right? We think that like democratizing this process and releasing the yaka to all is inherently a good thing. I don't think we should be trying to take that away from people. We also think that like, I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to base a policy on the fact that like opening government is bitter because at least one of them has to carry the dead weight of their partner. I think that it's really unfair that like we need to be held to the same standard as Paida, who's clearly a goddess and could get sex anywhere, but not all of us are Paida, and some of us have to like make do with what we have, right? And I think that's fine. I think finally what's really important to understand within this debate, right, is that we are at a point in our lives where we can be doing anything we want to be doing. And I don't think we should be put in a world where people actively have to continue doing sports. I think the world is a better place with the less jocks that there are in it and with the less like inherently athletic and kind of asshole-ish people in the world. I think that's fine. And I'll quickly say closing.
Why should we have sex if it's destroying the earth?
So I think that like, I think clearly we cannot take the other side of the house seriously, right? only one side of the House is being serious about environmentalism, and it's obviously closing opposition who in Cape Town who had a drought are not drinking water, and in fact are drinking yucca and alcohol. We think that clearly that issue falls to our side of the House, and that should not be taken. Finally, we do think it is a bit sad that within the Masters Grand Final, we have a team that openly dismissed the other second language team in this debate, which is Australia. We all know that Australians can barely speak English, and that's also okay. And we should allow them and respect them and welcome them into the ESL League. I don't think that it's reasonable for you guys to have disrespected them like that. I don't think that's fair. So finally, what have we shown you on my side of the House? Firstly, we've shown you that we should 100% seize the means of PP production and of the yucca. We showed you how it makes you think and have meaningful thoughts. We showed you that being sex positive and having a good time and being nerdy shouldn't prevent us from being able to have delicious and fun nerdy sex. We've shown you that you meet different people from all over the world, which is also super important. And most importantly, what I would like the panel to know is that if you give the debate to closing opposition, I will 100% democratize the yucca spreadsheet that I have in my house and give it to you all so you can live free lives and no longer have to deal with UCT and the rest of us asshole South African debaters. Thank you so much. We win this debate.
Thank you. We would like to call the government whip.
Yeah, they're all right.
Sorry, we're actually dating.
The benefits of debating, guys.
I think I made a gaffe there. Okay, I'm going to start this speech with a story. It was New Year's Eve just last year, and debaters prepared everywhere for yucca, crying, vomiting after yucca. And I would note in this debate, the clash of yucca has been a closely contested one. I think us at closing government win this debate, or win this clash, because we don't premise our extension on yucca. I would use the example of Liliana, who vomited on yucca night before drinking yucca, which is a thinker. That takes something. But anyway. So it was New Year's Eve, and I decided to have a shower, and I think my experience after having that shower is in itself exemplary of why debating is awful. Obviously, we have communal bathrooms, and after leaving the bathroom, I was in a towel, and my good friend, although I have never had a conversation with him, Duncan Crow, saw me come out of the bathroom. I was glistening in water. That's good or bad. I'll leave that up to you. And Duncan, I give Duncan a friendly nod because, I'm here for debating. I want to make friends.
Point, sir.
Hold on, I'm almost done. Duncan, he looks away from me. And when he looked away from me as I was in that towel, I was feeling awkward. At that point, my heart dropped. And I think at that point, that is why we think that debating is so awful. Because to the very essence of us all, I'll get you in a second, it disappoints us. And that's why I think us... at closing government win this. I have a POI from here, so yeah, sure, go.
You need to realize that Duncan isn't on the panel, so appealing to him doesn't win you this debate.
No, but everyone here surely wants Duncan's approval. Maybe, I don't know. So maybe that's a universal experience that everyone has not gotten Duncan. No, soon. Okay, so what am I going to do in this speech? Firstly, I'm going to be the first speaker in this debate to go into bat for the Model UN. I think we can win this debate on that issue alone. Secondly...
I told him not to do this.
Well... Liliana, then, for the second thing, Liliana thought her 3E material was very funny, so I'm going to whip that, by obligation to her. So we'll see how that goes.
On that.
I guess it was funny, yeah. But I'll take a POI first.
Liam, you say that debating hasn't improved your life, so I have to ask, what other hobbies do you have where you find yourself referring to yourself as the whip?
Come on, Liliana's right there. Come on. Okay, so Model UN. Now, you might say, Liam, this sounds like substantive material in a whip speech. Maybe it is. You might say, Liam, this sounds like you are knifing your opening government. I probably am. But the thing is, so far this debate has taken place on the premise that Model UN participants are lowly, they are regrettable, they are potentially more smelly than us because they're more nervous than us or something like that, right? I would question whether this construction exists to hide our own anxiety, spending our time doing an activity which is overly intellectualized or something like that. But let's assume that to be true, right? I want to say that they are the vulnerable stakeholders in this debate that we ought protect, right? There is no one in this debate so far. Hold on. No one in this debate so far has given them protection. And for a closing opposition that wants to give a Marxist extension, they are very happy to let the forces of the free market reject Model UN to the graveyard of our society. And we say, at closing government, we are the ones to protect Model United Nations. And we say, where debaters spend less time debating, where Yoni spends less time spending his money, maybe we could direct that to them.
Whip, so you don't have...
She said you don't have to include this as substantive, but I think you should.
Closing.
Yes.
So what you're failing to realize is that under our policy, we're ensuring that the people who do Model UN get to be with people who will understand and like them, and also ensuring that they can have some fun as well within their communities. Under your side of the house, that does not happen. You do not protect the most vulnerable.
See, I just think this whole debate where any UN speakers in this crowd might be, feeling a bit awkward in their seat. There's one there. There's one there. Shame, but, good for you. For them, I say, well, they'd be feeling pretty uncomfortable. I question whether that benefit exists. Anyway, secondly, in this speech, whipping Liliana's 3E material. I just want to take the moment, given this is like an unprecedented amount of attention that I have, I probably will never be on a world's grand final stage, but that's okay. Although that's like one of the regrettable parts of debating, we all aspire to be here. And then, anyway, I just want to call out the person who, in Grass and Michelle, who this morning had their alarm on at like 6:30 a.m. for half an hour. Like, what the fuck? Like who the anyway, if that was you, I expect like some sort of apology, maybe a yaka, something. I don't know, but yeah, just getting it out there. So, Liliana's 3E material. Firstly, economics. Liliana gave you a breakdown of Yoni's past income. It was very complex. There were many layers. The maths was there. You can tell that Liliana's going into management consulting, right? It was oddly like a case prep, but anyway. We then say that the environment is important. I think Liliana impacts OG's material about why it is regrettable that debaters have sex with each other. We say that that's because it hurts the environment. Finally, she talks about ears. I didn't really get this, but like insofar it was like about a white man, impinging upon other people. Yeah, like I guess that's maybe true. I don't know. Anyway, maybe we win this debate. Maybe we win this debate. But even if we don't, we can come back in 20 years' time when we're everyone else's ages and try again.
Thank you for that speech. We would like